Hello everybody, and this will be another guide. So this will actually be my third time trying to make a in-depth guide video where I go through a large amount of Tems and try and give an idea of what kind of competitive spreads could be used. This could be used for Arc Tamers or PvP, either one. But just to give you guys an idea of what TVs should you build, what abilities, what moves, and such should you build on your Tems. So first off, I just want to mention that this is patch 1.8.2. This is after Temtem's final content patch, but there still could be balance patches. However, most of them have been pretty inconsequential, and I'll try and bring up some move substitutions you can do just in case things were to switch around. So I'm hoping that these builds can be viable throughout the rest of Temtem's lifespan. But first off, I'd like to touch on how, if any of you don't know, Temtem does have like a built-in, it's called Temtem Showdown. It's pretty similar to Pokemon Showdown. You can find it under the competitive tab, and under this S button here, you can click on any of these teams. They'd probably be empty for you. And it's like a full team customizer. You can swap out your Tems, click edit on a slot, and you can pick any Tem in the game. And you can put any moves, stats, or anything on it that you would possibly want. So I've already done that, and I've built a whole bunch of spreads for the first handful of Tems in the Tempedia. I think this will probably be like a 4-episode thing, and I'll probably try and get these out real quick so that you guys have access to all of the builds you would possibly want for your favorite Tems. So first off here is Mimit. So I only have the striking set here, and this isn't perfect, but typically if you're running a striking transmog Mimit, you don't want to invest in either offense because you could end up stealing an opposing Temtem, and you don't want to have wasted TVs. So these builds will typically build very bulky and then have some speed investment because you gain plus speed from DNA extraction when you use the move. You could take some out of bulk and put some in speed, or even risk putting some in offense, but I think this is a very general striking Mimit spread that you can try out on your own. If you would like to use landing transmog, that one is normally used in combination with specific team combos like Nature Koish and Babawa, or on teams with like Hellfire synergy like Fire Chromeon Hedgen cores. And usually what you want to do is you want to copy the highest stamina TV investment on your team, like within reason. You know, if you're to have 200 investment on somebody, you don't want to use that, but around 100 would probably be good. And then you could honestly just copy their spread, because chances are that it's going to match multiple Tems of your team, because they'll all want the same stats because they all have the same goal. Next up is Zaobian. So this one's kind of a general attack T set. You have Electro Punch and Wastewater. Electro Punch hits water and Digis, 2 of your weaknesses. It's also got Prio with Synergy. It's very nice. High damage turn 1 option. You also have Wastewater, which can give you a better defensive type to avoid getting hit by waters. It also gives you a poison tick of damage for extra damage if somebody were to swap into a resist. Cyberclaw and Turbine are just so you have priority options all the time, even if you don't have Synergy for Electro Punch. Cyberclaw is good damage that can't be resisted, and Turbine is able to hit Toxics. This set does get walled by Earths and Crystals pretty badly, but there's really nothing you can do about that. It's more of a Zaobian problem. You could risk running something crazy like Slingshot Mechanical Heat or even Frond Whip, but I think this is the most consistent moveset. But I mean, Zaobian really has so many options, so feel free to play around. I've seen plenty of laundry ones recently instead of Cyberclaw. I would say Cyberclaw is the move you would typically get rid of because it doesn't really give you an advantage. It's just more like it's very consistent, and many competitive players value consistency over risky damage options. As far as the build goes, this is just enough HP to live a Volgon Thunderstrike and many other things. You have enough speed to outspeed Oshiara with priority, so that would be Electro Punch, and it is a relatively important matchup to win. Then the remaining TVs just went into attacks. You do some decent damage. Zaobian doesn't need max attack. It likes to utilize its bulk and its speed stats some. And if you wanted to run Voltaic Charge, you could do that as well, but attack T is far more generally used. if you were to go with Voltaic Charge, you'd probably run Heat Up, Turbo Attack, Cyber Claw, and maybe Wastewater or something as a third move, or fourth move. Now, for Chromeons, I honestly really hate covering Chromeons because I'm not going to take the time to build 12 different sets. So I just chose my favorite little guy here, and pretty much you can build every Chromeon the exact same. Here's my Chromeon build. You have enough stamina where you can use the Torrents. I mean, you could use the set for like Digi-Chromeon. I guess it's got the more expensive Torrent. But in generally, 68 stamina, give you a 3-turn rotation. That's what you want on any Tem. But, so if it is different depending on your Chromeon type, you want to change it. But I think this should work for most. Now, I do actually run only 265 speed on my Chromeon. Maybe a little bit controversial, because you'll lose the speed tie against other Chromeons always. But the difference between 272 and 265 doesn't matter that much. I'd rather just have the extra damage, because no matter what, you need this bit of stamina investment. So you have to either sacrifice speed or your special attack. And with this amount of speed, you're still outspeeding pretty much everything you want to. You outspeed Monko, you outspeed Zaobian, and you outspeed Volfi. All of them at max speed you'll outspeed. And you'll even outspeed Tems like Oshiara when they're at -1 speed. So if you have a Tesla Prison user, that could be relevant. So this is where I sit my speed. And you have max special attack this way. Chromeon wants to be paired with other Digis and Natures that match its type for Sinner Typer. Pigment Inverter is honestly just kind of bad. And then I think all Chromeons have like a decent spread option, or at least they all have Binary Flood. I normally like having a spread option, a priority option, usually harmful microwaves or something else if you can, a high damage option if it's available, and then just kind of a fill option. I like having at least both stabs turn 1 if possible, because that's just a nice advantage. Next up is Molu. So Molu has two great abilities. I prefer Sentinel because it prevents sleep for you and your ally, especially when mentals are more popular. I think this is really valuable, but Splitter is generally better, so I would recommend that for most players until you get used to Molu, or unless you have a specifically slow and sleep weak team. I think no matter what, this is pretty much your go-to Molu set. The only thing you'd really switch on it potentially is switching Cage for Rush. I know I do that, especially when I'm running Sentinel, just so you have a fast option. Rush is kind of niche use-wise, but it is still nice. Cage can actually proc with Splitter and give you Invigorized, which can be nice as well. Otherwise, Turbo Attack, Cyber Claw, and Faraday Cage. This is just your turn 1 damage, get synergy with Toxic. Your priority option was Cyber Claw, and Turbo Attack is just your high damage option. As far as the build goes, it's nothing real special, just a 3-turn rotation, max HP, and lots of attack just so you can deal damage. Molu has a very high attack stat, so it's good to utilize that. You could even actually take more out of attack and put it in bulk if you want to bulk your Molu. I did forget to mention it for the others, but you usually run Reactivile on Molu because Digital is weak defensively as a type, but Molu has good bulk, so it's good to kind of offset the weaknesses that way. You can take 2, even 3 hits this way. As far as the other ones, the other items I missed, Chromeon using Marbles. It can run many different items. I like Marbles because most of the time you're picking it first, and it also just helps its hyper-aggressive playstyle. Zaobian likes War Drum just because no matter what type it is, it gets an 8% damage boost. Usually it's also paired with other physical allies, so it can boost them. And I just put double screen on Mimit. Mimit's very flexible with item depending on what you want it to do. But I like double screen just because, especially with Striking Transmog, it's already bulky. This just gives it even more bulk at no negative. Next up is Platymus. Platymus for a long time was the Sweatband user due to its low base stamina. I still think it's a great user of it because it's got relatively cheap moves, but also kind of it's a lot of investment for very little stamina. So it helps you stay on the board for a long time. Platymus has been nerfed a lot due to its prevalence in PvP for a long time. And so it was kind of a struggle to put this together. But this is something similar to what I've been losing against recently, where it outspeeds a lot of things. Namely, this speed is meant to outspeed Inky, which is one of its bigger counters. And then you pretty much try and utilize Toxin Shower whenever it's available to let you survive. And then you just dish out damage whenever you can. You could take the defense and HP investments out and put it in special attack to be more of a nuke. But what the defense investment helps you do is live any wind move in the game. It's calculated to survive a tactical strike turbine from Turok, which is the highest physical damage wind move in the game. And other than that, it's pretty standard. You could swap out Tsunami for Sharp Rain if you would like more water damage instead of spread, but I always like having more spread. Typically, Platypus wants to be paired with electrics and stuff that resists Toxin Shower, so you're not damaging your own allies. So other toxics typically would be that. Also, I would pretty much always run Determined. Zen is really not great. It's super niche. Would not recommend. Next up is Lali. Items can go bait or handcuffs. It can run a lot of other things too, but I think bait or handcuffs are going to be the best two. Very consistent, high value items. This is my consistent Lali build since forever. I've been running this for ages. You reach 232 because this is the solid breakpoint to outspeed anything using 2 prio when you use 3 prio. Basically, you can outspeed the fastest thing in the game when you use Plague. Unless it uses Plague too. And then you put max special attack, botanists to do as much nature damage as possible, with enough bulk where you can live quite a few things with solid special defense. Now, unfortunately, Lali, it doesn't have great wind threat, so right now it's more or less like a big nature threat that looks for opportunities to use Turbo Choreography. You could switch the HP and special attack investments here and go for a bulkier support set with backhanded. I've seen that quite a bit, and if you did that, I'd recommend swapping Resin Trap for probably Refresh, so you can scale your special attack to be strong. And you also heal 20% as well. Another option would be to run Allergic Spread instead of Turbo Choreography for this offensive botanist set. That's what I like to do typically, because you just have extreme damage even when you're using 2x or 1x moves. I'd say those are the two main ways to play Lali, but it does have some nice other niche support moves if you do go backhanded and want to try a niche support. Next up is Tataro. Tataro is extremely flexible. It's got a whole bunch of different items it can run. It can run Nut Bar, Nutrition Bar, it can run First Aid Kit. I typically go Resistance Badge, but First Aid Kit seems to be the most popular item on it, so just bear that in mind. It's also got one of the widest move pools in the game. The one I'm showing here is kind of a support with turbo set. So the goal here is to pair it with a wind. Historically, it's been paired with Grandpa. I think nowadays it would probably be better paired with Tuvine or Turok. And what you can do is you can Turbo Choreography and the perfect jab in front of a Tuvine or Turok to lower defense, and you'll be faster than everyone on the board. And I mean, that's kind of the main gimmick. Extra Energy Slam is your main or turn 1 option. It really doesn't have anything else. Please don't run like Fierce Claw. Extra Energy Slam is a good move. Don't underestimate it, especially with Tataro's base stamina, because it does damage based on stamina. Major Slash is extremely hard-hitting move, 150 base damage. This is going to be the main move you want to click for damage whenever possible. Even a perfect jab into your own Major Slash is going to do loads of damage, especially with the Resistance Badge and attack investment. Lullaby is a gimmick, don't fall for it, but you're free to have fun. Bestial Charge is decent if you don't go for Turbo Choreography or Perfect Jab. Held Anger is also a nice nuke option if you don't want to drop Perfect Jab, because if you get the speed boost with Turbo Choreography, it's nice. Reaching 190 speed allows you with Synergy Turbo Choreography to hit speeds of... you allow speed Amphitheater, basically. You're allowed speed the breakpoint everyone reaches. The stamina is just for a 3-turn rotation. HP is maxed and attack is filled. Tataro does not have a good trait. Never has, never will. Burglar's really niche, but it could work. Soft Touch makes it so that if you have a fast hypnosis user, that's kind of where Grandpa comes in. You can use Hypnosis on a target with Grandpa and then gain this damage boost with Soft Touch. It's about the only real gimmick combo with it. But it comes into handy on occasion. And last for this team is Gunder. Grunder's also got a few different items it can run. Typically, people run Energy Drink because it's used as a counter to Mentals this way. Because as an electric, it wants to be able to hit Mentals for 2x, but most Mentals run Sleep, and this prevents Gunder from falling asleep. And Bait's also another common item seen on it for that same reason. So Grunder's moves, you can run Nox Bomb instead of Wastewater. It's a lot cheaper stamina-wise this way, but Wastewater inflicts a Poison Tick, which will make it pretty much always do more damage than Nox Bomb, especially if the opponent swaps into a Resist, because it's 12.5% true damage on the poison, which is super valuable. Defibrillate and Paizo are your main electric moves. This way you can pretty much always have an electric move available past turn 1. Beef Up is just to make sure you're an offensive threat, because for the most part, Gunder is either like super tanky, or it's just kind of a little bit chunky. I don't know. Grunder's got two different builds it can run. It can either run Bramation, where it usually builds like max HP, lots of defense, and it just rests turn 1, gets the defense boost, and then uses Shelter turn 2 to gain even more defense boosts. Scale its offenses with Beef Up, and then spam Nox Bomb and Paizo Electric as its 2 damage moves. Or it is just a kind of a bruiser, where it's got good defensive investment and good offensive investment, and just utilizes its awesome typing to just chip through the opposing team. And that's kind of the build I go through here. It's the one I typically recommend to people. It does get walled by Earths and Electrics, but it's a really great typing for anything other than those two. Especially with Thick Skin making it a viable Toxic into wins. As for the TVs, these aren't to help you survive anything specific, but Gunder has really lopsided defenses, very low defense, very high special defense, so I like to invest some in defense and the rest in HP, but in total it's just like 500 defensive TVs. You may notice the speed is actually at 156. This is so that with Paizo Electric you can outspeed the Tems reaching the 232 speed breakpoint, which is the most common breakpoint, so I think it's always nice to have. Plus with this you'll outspeed some other threats around its speed tier. Not that there's a whole lot of them. And then the rest is just damage. But you can feel free to tweak it, and there's some other options for attacks. Like Paralyzing Poison is a good move, even if you don't go Bramation, but it's probably the best move to combo with Bramation after Shelter, so you can Shelter and Paralyzing Poison. There's just multiple options to play Gunder. It's a pretty flexible Tem for what it is. I wouldn't fall into the bait of Water Jet, though. It's really not going to help you as much as you think it would. But it's fun. You can definitely catch your opponents off guard with it. So that's it for this team. If anyone would like to just grab the code to steal any of the... Don't use this team as is, but you can just steal the spreads if you download the code. And if you're curious how to use the code, you just click this button right here, and you can import the squad code from this. So on to the next one. So as you might see, Magma, I have two builds for. Hopefully I remember to go over both. Because this is my personal Magma build. And anyone who knows Magma probably is like, what? It's a physical attacker? But it has Trample. So Trample was added very late into Magma's lifespan. And it's kind of underwhelming in my opinion. It's really only good with synergy. And other than that, it's really, really not great. So this is my build. I typically play this in a 2-2 core. I think it pairs really well with Tag Team. And you also like pairing it next to other melees for show-off synergy. So turn 1 you basically always want to show off, but Warm Cuddle is there just in case you need to deal damage, threaten out a Chimerian or something. And then Oshidashi, it's one of the better turn 2 attack options in the game. And if you get +2 with show off, you can deal loads of damage and nothing wants to take it. Meteor Swarm's also nice just for having a stronger fire option. But I mean, this build is very tanky. It's just max HP, a little bit of speed. This speed breakpoint is to outspeed. There's a lot of things in this low speed bracket. Rhoulder, Scaravolts, Gario, Tyrannac. I think those are the main ones that you're trying to outspeed. And this speed breakpoint will outspeed all of them. It's only 35 TVs, so I would recommend it. Then it's just the rest in attack. You could invest a little bit more in stamina, but right now you have a 3-turn rotation, and show off synergy gives it vigorized, so that'll help a lot. As far as trait goes, they're both good. You're kind of just gambling on which ones. Sometimes there's more heavy physical or special metas. I typically like Magma to have Fizzgulp, but that's totally up to you. The other one, I did make a Trample build because I know a lot of people love the move. So I think typically Trample should be used in more of a bulkier team. But most people just run Madness Buff, Soul Shout, Fiery Soul, and Trample. I do invest a little bit more into bulky TVs here because you want to survive to get the Madness Buff off, and it does like take your health down by 25%. So you need the extra bulk to survive, I'd say. And you get +3 special attack, which counteracts to lower special attack here. So it balances out, and I think you do good damage then. Don't expect Fiery Soul to do a lot of damage. This move will never deal a lot of damage. Even if it's 2x, it'll probably do like 50-60%. Don't force a Madness Buff. A lot of times Madness Buff is just... It's tempting, but it's not the right play. The real goal here is to survive long enough to get your holds off with Trample and overexert. I think optimally you swap around, get onto a good board where you can use Trample, get the synergy, and then while your opponents are overexerted, then use Madness Buff. That's how you should play this, but it's just not easy to do. I have the same speed breakpoint, and the rest is kind of already explained. Once again, the trait. Now going back here, we got Grandpa. I guess the item with Magma. I always like Nut Bar, but if you're going the special set, you definitely could go Sensei Robe for more damage. I don't think the damage boost is really worth it. I'd rather take the bulk. And Nut Bar combos so well with this trait, you can end up healing like 12% every turn, 13%. But yeah, Grandpa now. Grandpa pretty much needs Fake Beard. It needs a stamina item of some kind, and Fake Beard is just the best for it, because its best turn 1 option is Hypoxia, and you're going to want to run that. Grandpa has 2 good traits. I like Bully. Bully's fun, but I am not afraid to admit that it is just outclassed by Bird Season. Being able to not deal half damage to other wind types is super valuable. It gives you winning matchups into things like Turok, other Grandpas. And it prevents people's defensive swaps, which is a big thing. So now the only thing that can resist a Grandpa is Electric. But I mean, Grandpa's not even actually an offensive carry. It's more like a support bruiser, I guess. So Hypoxia is your main damage move, but the real goal here is to get turbo choreographies off and use Hypno at super fast speeds to put your opponents to sleep. Then using that space, your ally can either set up, or you can just buy turns to use Turbo again on the next ally. Hypoxia and Tornado are just there to deal damage. Doesn't really have any other damage options. You can run Hurricane for spread damage and also extra speed paired with a digital, but you have a double electric weakness. You could run Windburst if you really don't want to run Fake Beard and you want a cheap turn 1 option. But you're going to have to change your stamina and invest then. Even with Fake Beard, I'd still recommend hitting 61 stamina, just in case somebody has like Mom's Lunch or you get exhausted through Plague. It still allows you to at least click 2 moves before OXing. This is more of a bulky set. I invest 232 speed because then with Turbo you're still reaching good breakpoints. You could switch the special attack and HP breakpoints or investments depending on if you want to deal more damage or be bulkier. I did opt for HP here so that you can be more supporty with Turbo and Hypno, because you're just such a huge pain when you have these 2 options. Once again, totally up to you. Next up is Amphitheater. Amphitheater usually likes Sweatband, but it can run like Handcuffs as well. Up to you. So this Amphitheater spread is more of a supporty one. I don't even mean supporty, but it's just kind of an annoying with a exhaust applier, and it's also got Bright Beam to survive hits. Relaxed helps it heal when not receiving damage, and Bright Beam synergizes super well with that. Speed control with Tesla Prism. Basically, this Tem is the fastest in the game, and it's just there to be annoying. It's there to win you speed games with Tesla Prism, and it's there to pressure out your opponents whenever they have anything weak to it. I think it's actually really good in this meta, just due to how many things that it either ties with or beats. Because it pretty much ties with both Volorend and Volphy, two of the strongest Tems, or most consistent Tems in the entire game. And it's also really good at threatening out stuff like Oshiara. And if you run Settling, it's also good into some stall Tems like Karen, because it can push off Doom, so you have to Soil Steam the thing down. I personally like Settling and would probably put most of this HP investment in Special Attack. But you can go either trait here. The TVs, 331 speed outspeeds max speed Oshiara. That's the speed break point you want to reach most of the time. You could go slower if you are trying to have a bulky deer, but even Amphiturite at its bulkiest isn't that bulky. No, at least not as bulky as you'd want it to be. Don't get tempted by Shelter. It's a bait. Don't do it. This HP allows you to survive pretty much any one attack. It's calced for Gialis Crystal Bite, which is the strongest thing I could think of. And special attack is just fill, but it allows you to do some damage. Amphithere's natural special attack is really low. Don't expect to do much damage. You're pretty much probably going to be chipping 20% with each Tesla Prism, maybe more if you 2x with Plague. As far as the moves go, it's got a few different options. So you could drop, basically Resin Trap is the flexible slot. You're pretty much always going to want these three moves. These are Amphithere's bread and butter. The Force slot, you can do whatever you want with. Allergic Spread and Electric Storm are good spread options for damage. Intimidation buys you another turn of evade and also spreads exhaust. I think it's pretty good. Turbocharge just recently got buffed to decrease hold and also increase speed. It's kind of supporty some options. Sparks is also nice if you want it to serve more of a support role. But Sparks is kind of low value. It's hard to justify, but it could work, especially if you self Sparks, because then you can win the late games, especially with Relaxed keeping you alive longer. It's just some stuff to think about there. Don't run Refresh. Don't do it. Alright, next up is Mudrid. Pretty much all Mudrids run Iron Coating. Mudrid, I mean, you could run Straw Shield. I don't think it really comes into play. Mudrid's so squishy it dies to even its 2x weaknesses like Nature, Water, Earth. So here's my go-to Mudrid spread. Speed is 1 point higher than max speed Psypat, so you can put it to sleep with Crystal Deluge. It's pretty relevant and really the only relevant one you'll probably run into. I mean, potentially if you're running into a max speed Valash, that would be bad, but you don't see those anymore. Hardly ever. You still get outsped by a max speed Gialis if somebody really wanted to, and that was the only other relevant matchup. The stamina, so you can use 3 moves. Soil Steam, Soil Steam, Soil Steam, or Soil Steam, Deluge, whatever. Max special attack and the rest in HP. Nothing special here. Mudrid actually lives more things than you'd probably think at base HP. I think it lives stuff like it can live a Plague, it can live a Water Cannon, it can live even a Hook from an Osakai. I've always been surprised about that one. Both traits are great here. Resistance was better back when Tolkien was meta and Heater was all over the place. But Dispersion is arguably low value, but I still like it. I think it's such a cool ability. I always run it. As far as moves go, Crystal Dust, Soil Steam, and Crystal Deluge you're pretty much always going to run. Crystal Dust is just your priority option. You also have like very high prio, which is kind of rare in the game if needed. Soil Steam is just super high damage for a turn 1 option. That's also why you run Iron Coating, is to do even more damage with it. And Deluge is just to put people to sleep. It's like the only way you can buy a turn. You're going to want to play Mudrid with Mentals specifically for Deluge. As far as other moves, Dust Vortex is if you want... basically everything... The flex move is Sandstorm. You don't need Sandstorm, especially if you're not running Dispersion. But I think Sandstorm is better than Quartz Dirt, but if you want more Crystal Spread instead, you can totally run Quartz Dirt. It's very similar in damage. I just like... You don't need Synergy for the extra 10 damage, and you also isolate them, so slightly more value there. It does get Turbo, and it's one of the fastest Tems that gets Turbo, besides Yukama, so you can run that. Like I said, Dust Vortex, and I've even seen a couple Diamond Fort Mudrids. If you... Like, theoretically, this could work, and I've always wanted to make it work, but I've never been able to pull it off. And if anyone does it, I applaud you. Because you get nullified and plus your defenses, you can actually turn a... And because you're fast enough, if you're facing a really slow team, you can do something like eat a Stone Ball and only take like 20% of your health, because you have +4 defense and you're nullified. So, good luck to anyone who tries that, but you're cooking if you do. Here's what I'd do, so there's that. Next up is Taifu, another Tem I have 2 different builds for because it plays very differently based on which trait it has. So this is the more offensive set with Natural Conversion. You're pretty much always going to want to run these 4 moves with this set. You could run Unseen Blow, but there's really no reason to. You're going to want both your nature options. Allergic Spread is really great. Probably better than Leech in most situations, but Leech is your healing option. And then Hypoxia and Dust Vortex allow you to hit Toxics and Fires, your only 2 weaknesses. Making Taifu like one of the only Tems that has perfect coverage over every single weakness it has. And with Natural Conversion, with Natural Conversion, it does like great damage with all of it. And it's high special attack stat. So this is once again 500 TVs in bulk, so that you kind of take hits. Lopsided defenses again, so I always like to kind of balance those out a little bit. Same speed breakpoint I mentioned earlier. Big one here is outspeeding Scaravolts, so you can land a Dust Vortex before you get Fire Tornadoed. This stamina is just to give you 3-turn rotation as always, and the rest is special attack. You could try and play around with Cheer Up now that it gives you special attack plus, but I don't think it's worth it. You want to be clicking damage moves every time this Tem exists with this build. Oh, and then the item, pretty much you're going to want to run either Pan Sunscreen or Takuma Mask. I like Pan Sunscreen on the offensive one, because that way you can't get burned. Don't run Ice Cube. Ice Cube is bad. Pan Sunscreen's better. Takuma Mask is really good. So this is going to be more of a stall Taifu with Safe Retreat. I think Safe Retreat is kind of mediocre as a trait. I was just hoping they would... It used to just be once per battle, but it would give you 2 turns of regen. I was kind of hoping they just raised it to 3, but this is what we have now. Discount Regenerator. But anyways, so this time I have 700 HPs in bulk, or TVs in bulk, and a lot in stamina. But this gives you a 4-turn rotation with Gaia included, so you will never run out of stamina unless somebody uses, like, Marbles, Willpower Drain, or Plague or Exhaust. So you can always do something with this Taifu. And the special attack is just make sure you're not irrelevant. You could try and fit Cheer Up on this somewhere just so you can have some sort of scaling, because right now you're not much of an offensive threat, but you're able to heal quite a bit between Gaia, Leech, and Safe Retreat, and then you can be physically bulky after a Bark Shield. So this Taifu can be hard to break through, but it's also really hard to find the right time to set it up, and usually you'll take a lot of damage in the process. One of the fun things I've tried pairing it with is Nature Coish, because you have synergy with Leech, and or not Nature Coish, Wind Coish with Iridescence, because you can set Taifu up with like Zen Meditations with damage, and then you also have Refreshing Breeze, which can raise special defense. But that's super gimmicky. I wouldn't recommend it. But this is just an option for Taifu on a stall team. But pretty much every stall player I know has never run Taifu since it's been reworked to this, so I can't say it works real great, and I'd probably recommend using the other set instead. Alright, on to Wiplump. Every Wiplump in existence is running Straw Shield now. If you see Wiplump, it's running Straw Shield. If you're not running Straw Shield, you're just you're making a mistake. Okay, so this probably is a bit faster than most people run their Wiplumps. So I wanted to reach this speed breakpoint because with this you can outspeed even max speed Volfies, which I think is a relevant matchup, but might be a bit overkill. You can also outspeed max Zaobians and Munkos this way. At least I think you can outspeed max Zaobians. And then stamina is just for 4-turn rotation. I honestly forgot what the HP is calced for. I'm trying to remember. You might... nope, don't remember. But it's for something. Gives you a little bit of bulk, though. You don't really want your Wiplump to die right away, so it's good to have something. And special attack is because you do want to deal good damage as everything. Wiplump has a high special attack stat. And since it's not really supporty and doesn't do anything for staying on the field longer, you want it to be able to do damage. These moves I think are pretty standard. The only one that you'd really... The Tsunami's the flex slot. You could run Sharp Rain for a higher damage water move. That's about it. I mean, you're pretty much always going to see these 4 moves. Wiplump, unfortunately, is not very flexible. And Patient is kind of bad. I wouldn't recommend that. Plethoric is just better, because you can outspeed a lot of things. Next up is Skunch. Skunch typically runs War Drum, but it's got some other options. I would not run Straw Shield on this. I don't even know what else you'd run. I think Double Screen I've seen a few times, First Aid Kit, just some basically bulky items if you're not running War Drum. But typically it's War Drum because it's more or less like a Perfect Jab support, defense lower support. It's got Brawny. You're pretty much pairing it with other physical attackers for Perfect Jabs. You get War Drum value. If you wanted, you could swap out Perfect Jab for Wrenching Massage and try and make Skunch a carry. The 20% on Brawny is nothing to scoff at, and you could give it like Res Badge or something, but it still gets value off War Drum, so it's just, I would recommend that regardless. This is made to be more of like a hybrid support damage dealer build. So I got max HP, enough stamina for a 3-turn rotation. It's quite a bit. You could cut this down if you're okay including Perfect Jab in the rotation, but I calced for Savage Oshi Ninja as the rotation because I think that will happen more often than you probably think it will. The speed is also very flexible here. So right now I just have it so it outspeeds base speed Chromeon by a couple points. So it's really good for Perfect Jabbing in front of your own Chromeon and also punishing opposing Chromeons. But of course it's not perfect. And then the attack is just fill. As far as like replacement options, like I said, Wrenching Massage for Perfect Jab could be one. Haito Uchi for Oshidashi is also one I see on occasion. I think is what I'm running on my current Skunch. I'm actually running a much faster Skunch to Perfect Jab in front of like a physical Inky, and I can get more value off of the sleep with Haito Uchi with all that speed investment. But both options are good. Other than that, I really wouldn't run other options, just them two if wanted. And then last on this team is Moveflank. Pretty much all Moveflanks are going to run Resistance Badge. I would not run really anything else personally. There's kind of like two main... Like Moveflank can run either ability, Unnoticed or Hurry Wart. Typically, if you're running Unnoticed, you're going to run less speed. I think you run like 186 speed typically, and more bulk, so that you can take hits. Hurry Wart, you need a little bit more speed investments, and probably a little less bulk. This spread is kind of different than what I normally do. Normally, I would have like none of the special defense, and probably even a little less HP, and put max attack in there. But I would recommend going with a little bulkier set, just because it's easier to play that way. You're basically just going to be dishing out constant damage. That's just what Moveflank does. It just has high base damage all around, and like, if you're not a mental, you can't stop it. This is the best, like, I'm hitting you with a 1x move temp in the game. It's got... So Hurry Wart allows it to have Bestial Charge turn 1. That's a 75 damage spread move on both Temps. Held Anger, 160 base power on low stam. That's off on like 3 turns. 81 stamina allows Moveflank to just stay on the board forever if it's ignored due to the low stamina costs, so it can constantly dish out damage. And this speed breakpoint is just so it can outspeed Oshiara with Goring if needed. If you are running Unnoticed, sometimes it's better to run Double Kick so you always have a priority option instead of Goring. I've also seen Execution, but that's really gimmicky. It does raise attack and special attack now, but because it has 4 hold, it's very hard to find the right time to do that. There's also some gimmicks where you can use Hurry, Wart, and Cage, and you can trap an opponent into a bad starting board, or just board at any point with that. But those are really the only ones I would run. I know a lot of people get tempted by Moveflank's good special attack stat, a Hurry, Wart, knockback. Don't get tempted by it. It's not as good as it sounds. It's really not. I promise you it's not. Alright, so if anyone wants to use any of those builds, you can just type in this code and steal them from there. And then we're on to here. We've already done these two. So next up is Rhoulder. So this is my personal Rhoulder build. Oh, also, Reactivile. If you're running Rhoulder, you want to run Reactivile. It's like its best item. They've been best buds for years now. But yeah, this is my personal Rhoulder build. A lot of people don't like that I don't run Stoneball and that I run Earthbreaker instead. A lot of people would just run Stoneball instead of Earthbreaker, so feel free to do that. But this is personally the one that I like better. And all it does is you reach the 135 speed breakpoint for Scaravolts. 70 stamina allows you to have a 3-turn rotation using the most expensive moves. Max HP and the rest in attack. Tardy Rush is a lot harder to utilize than it used to be, but it also gives way more offensive value. So you don't have to play around the trait. But if you're facing off against a stall team and they're setting up in your face, just by existing, Rhoulder gets value. And by having a high damage nuke like Earthbreaker, you can just stay on the field for like 2 turns or 3 turns, get the attack boost, and then click Earthbreaker, and you have a +2 145 base attack. And it's just really great. Anything that gives you free stats is really valuable. It's just that the activation for this is tough, so that's probably why you don't see it often. And Rhoulder is just littered with weaknesses. Reactivile helps it survive, and so does the HP investment. As far as other move options, like I said, Stoneball for Earthbreaker is really going to be the main one. You'll see some other ones on a rare occasion. Cage is probably the only other one that sometimes people use just to trap people in, but I don't recommend using anything besides maybe Stoneball. And you can use Stick Skin. Rhoulder can't do much of anything against wind types, so it just helps it die slower in one specific situation, rather than being able to have a really great matchup into an entire playstyle and even situational use elsewhere. But feel free to try either. So next up is Nagaise. I ran out of other teams to put like extra Nagaises on for other builds, but luckily both builds are pretty similar as far as like TV spread wise. It's basically just the item and the moveset that changes. So I'll talk about the TVs first. So this HP helps Nagaise to live a Crystal Spikes from a Channeler Zenith with max special attack. It's like the highest damage reasonable thing you can survive. Stamina, you could definitely take down the stamina. I like Beta Burst Nagaise Fury Beta Burst rotation, but you could do Beta Psy Surge Nagaise Fury or even Beta Hypnosis Fury, and that'll save you a bunch of TVs. Up to you. The speed, I like 273. It helps you outspeed things like Chromeons and Nesla, which are common enough that it's worth it, I'd say. You'd almost wonder if you should just put more in, because Nagaise does have room for higher speed. You could outspeed Inky technically, but I don't think there's enough Inkies around to justify that. And then the rest is just in special attack. And so here's where things kind of get goofy. So the Deceit Aura is like a really game-warping trait where it flips priority options. So it makes Psy Surge viable, because instead of being low prio, it's high prio. And it's also a great cheap damage option. So if you're going to Deceit Aura, you will always want Psy Surge. If you're going to Deceit Aura, you also probably want Straw Shield, because electrics are one of the best things to shut Nagaise down, and you can negate at least one of those hits if you do have Deceit Aura. However, if you're going Water Custodian, this one does not flip speeds, And the main reason you would run Water Custodian is if you're on a mental core and you're running Hallucination instead of Psy Surge, and you're running Schween's Horn. I'm not going to actually change it. But Schween's Horn turns toxic moves into water moves. So you have a high priority water move that does like good damage. So it has been nerfed since last patch, but it is still very strong. And you also get to counter some Tems like Oshiara with your trait, and you can even protect Tems like Hedgen and Drakash and stuff. Because you still get to utilize the trait. It's just the only reason why you actually run this over Decidor is so that you don't ruin your priority option, funny enough. So those are kind of the two Nagaise builds. You can kind of pick and choose which one you go for. Both of them, like I said, have similar TV spreads. This one's going to be Decidor for all intensive purposes. I think that one's the more fun one to play around with anyways. Next up is Nidrasil. So I see most players who play Nidrasil end up running it with Tri-Phytologist. But Tri-Apothecary Nidrasil has been one of the like S+ tier menaces in the game for probably like 3-4 years. Maybe, I don't know, maybe. It's been a long time. Because what it does is it clicks allergic spread and it deals 3 poison ticks to both opponents, which is 75% true damage. And unless they're toxic types or have like some sort of item that prevents toxic ticks, there's nothing they can do to avoid it. So it's just extreme value, and Nidrasil itself is extremely bulky. You invest like max HP, high special defense, and some defense. If Nidrasil gets a couple turns on the board, it can click Bark Shield and raise its defense to like near unkillable levels. Basically, this thing's just a menace. It doesn't even need attack investment because all of its damage is dealt with toxic ticks. Now it does get walled by other toxics, but sometimes it can win games even despite that. So the stamina is just so it can have a spores into toxic ink into allergic spread and bark shield. I wouldn't recommend clicking toxic ink very often. The only time you actually want to click this is if the opponent has a water or a nature type out. Otherwise you'll want to click spores. Bear in mind that you... Sorry, I don't know what the music switched. You can have you can use spores on your ally and it'll give them regenerating. So that's something you'll probably want to do when you can, especially if you have a bulkier team. Most of the times this Nidrasil set is going to be run on a bulky team. Maybe even stall. Now if you really want to run Tri-Phytologist, you swap in Nox Bomb, Narco, and probably Hypnosis instead of Spores because you don't need that. And I guess Sharp Leaf you need as well. I don't know. It's just it's a whole different set. But I've never seen a Tri-Phytologist Nidrasil actually be consistently good. It can be kind of fun to run, but you'd basically run like 3 attack moves and probably Hypno, speed investment, attack investment, and little like, mediocre HP. It's hard to just say. I really just wouldn't recommend running that kind of Nidrasil, to be honest. But feel free to experiment. It's not like you can't. Even on this build, though, you could definitely swap out Nox Bomb for Toxic Ink. Totally up to you. Toxic Ink is nice just because it still applies ticks, and because a lot of times you'll still want the poison ticks no matter what. And the Nox Bomb isn't going to do that much more damage when you have 0 attack investment, even though Nidrasil has high base attack. Alright, next up is Capyre. Oh, the item. Building Blocks. Building Blocks is a solid option just because Nidrasil doesn't have any ways to heal itself outside of like Pillow Narco Hit. You could get really creative and drop like Spores or Allergic Spread to use Narco Hit. Only reason I like to run both is because Allergic Spread is offensive and Spores is typically defensive. So you'll always have an option to heal yourself, but you could definitely drop Allergic Spread and throw like Narco Pillow for healing. But typically you want some way to self-heal, so Building Blocks or Pillow are going to be your best options. But yeah, Capyre, I think Fire Chip is just the best option for the guy, but you can choose something else if you want to as well. This has been my go-to set for Capyre for a long time. Just reached 232 speed. 73 stamina gives you a Quetzalcoatl Meteorite combo, max attack, and then this HP helps you survive just about anything. At least once. Last Rush is always my preferred trait, though Ignite Protection does have some fun interactions with like Roar, Charcoal Wall Shelter, Extinction, but I've never seen anyone pull those off real great. The other thing it does is help you get off a heat up much safer than you normally would be able to. But if you're running Ignite Protection, you're really going to want to look for a heat up. I guess Ignite Protection is actually the trait you're going to want to run if you're running like full Glass Cannon Capyre. Because Capyre is a very fast Tem, but most people don't run it that way just because it's able to utilize its bulk. And it usually wants to kind of be one of the last ones hanging around to get more value out of Last Rush. But if you do have a Glass Cannon build, Ignite Protection is better just to help give you that artificial bulk from the burn. As far as moveset goes, it does have Fiery Ballad, so you could definitely drop Embers. Like, Embers is kind of the flex move here. I like it because it just gives you a burn option, even when you're not running Ignite Protection. But you can run Fiery Ballad to have a speed up option, and also just another priority option in case you don't have a neutral left alive. You could also run Base Jump is the other common one, just so you have something that's not a fire move and can hit stuff. Of course, that's not required on sets. It does have some defensive options like Block and Roar, Shelter, but you can run those stallier options on any team. It's just less recommended to do so, and harder to find the right time. But normally this guy's used as kind of like an endgame cleaner. You lose a couple Tems, you leave one neutral around, you get your Last Rush to proc for that crazy damage boost, and you just start melting through their team. Capyre's, like, one of its biggest problems is that it doesn't have great allies. Its best ally is Moveflank, who also kind of does the same thing of just dishing out damage as fast as possible, and that's constantly. It does have kind of neutral Koish as an ally now, and even like neutral Chromeon, but even that is still a bit on the weaker end of combos. So that's kind of where it struggles, and you can't really run Valash because then you're stacking an Earth weakness. Next up is Zenith, another Tem that pretty much needs Fake Beard. Zenith, it does have a couple builds, like you can go Wrecked Farewell Physical or Channeler, but Channeler I think is just better in general. You get a free 25% damage boost on special moves. You got Crystal Spikes, which is 100 base power, high prio option. You can just spam this, do tons of damage. You also got Crystal Deluge if you pair with a Mental. And you got Knockback if you need to hit something that resists Crystal, though don't spam this because you're hurting yourself. Madness buff is if you feel like there's a good time for it, but for the most part this thing's just like super bulk, spam Crystal Spikes. Zenith has the highest base stat total in the entire game, I think, unless some nerfs happened and I missed them, but it's very bulky, so even with only 258 HP, don't underestimate those defenses. I do have 200 speed in it. This allows it to outspeed Golzy and Inky. Not that Inky's a real relevant matchup, but Golzy can KO Zenith. You could put a couple more points in it just so it outspeeds Volgon now. But Volgon doesn't have Inner Spirit anymore, so I don't think it's needed to do that. It doesn't really have a lot of other options it would want to run. I've seen, like, you can run Quartz Shield instead of Knockback if you're going for a bulkier build. Even Diamond Fort for similar reasons. If you're going Wrecked Farewell, typically the whole point of Wrecked Farewell is to just bulk up with Quartz Shield and Diamond Fort. A Crystal Tail will probably be your only offensive option. And then you run Sharpening, so that you can either buff up allies with Quartz Shield, or if people are avoiding killing you, trying not to proc your trait, you go Diamond Fort into Sharpening and scale yourself. But like I said, this is the easier build to play. And last for today is going to be Aohi, one of my favorite Tems to play. I know they reworked Adrenaline Shot, but I still think it's pretty good for it, just as another stam option. Doesn't have to fight over Fake Beard or anything. Usually if Aohi's using another move to overexert, it's not going to be a high stamina cost one, so it shouldn't even hurt you that bad. But it does have a couple other options, things like it's a decent marbles user. Actually, I can't really think of a lot of other options. I would really just run Adrenaline Shot or like Sweatband. Those are kind of going to be the main two I'd recommend you run. Don't get baited into physical Aohi. It's not nearly as good as special Aohi is. I know it doesn't have a great fire damage special option, but Fiery Soul is really all you need. The high prio burn option is very valuable. Psywave to support with special defense drops, as well as a only one hold mental option. Hypnosis to put opponents to sleep, and Phantom Whiplash for just your high damage option. Like getting a Psywave into a Phantom Whiplash, even on a 1x target, is still going to do loads of damage. Don't underestimate it. This has been the build that I pretty much always use. I think I've tweaked like stamina, but that's about it. I forget. I calced this 150 HP ages ago. But it helps me survive pretty much any one hit. I think it was initially for like Minotaur Hasty Lunge. And if your Aohi can live a Minotaur Hasty Lunge, you can live most things. I think you still die to like Cold Geysers, but maybe not even. I'm not sure. Special attack, it's not maxed, but it's decent. This Aohi is pretty often played as like a cleanup unit. Like, oh, something survived on like 10%. Well, just click Fiery Soul and then you proc your trait. And then all of a sudden the other Tem can't hit you. That's what it does best. Its other trait is not great. I mean, it sounds good, but if the opponent's not swapping, it doesn't do anything. Also, getting burn ticks for... The main point of burn is to reduce your opponent's damage. So if they're taking burn ticks while off the field, that doesn't help a whole lot. So I would always go Ignis. I think it's a very valuable trait. As far as move substitutions, I like Psywave a lot. I think Psywave is an awesome move. It's decent damage for cheap cost and lower special defense. But this is also probably your flex slot, because Fiery Soul, Hypnosis, and Phantom Whiplash are going to be some of your core. You could go Magma Cannon if you want a different fire option. You could go Nightmare Feed if you're going for more of a bulkier like stall set. I've never found any success with this, but potentially. Otherwise, Jinx Whisper probably goes in place of Hypnosis, but you could go Double Sleep if you really wanted to. I do like new Jinx Whisper. I used to run it all the time instead of Hypnosis back when... before it got reworked, but most of you guys probably don't know what that was like. So those are the 3 substitutions I'd potentially do. But yeah, so here's the code for this, if you guys want to steal that at all. Like I said, don't run the team as it is. It is not balanced, or it's just literally the Tems in Tempedia order. Okay, like I said, I'm kind of hoping to get these next few videos out about with the rest of the Tems pretty quick, but no guarantees there. I hope you guys enjoyed. These do take quite a while to do, so I would appreciate if you guys let me know that you're enjoying them, whether that's through likes or comments. Of course, don't feel forced to do that. I'm glad you guys are still interested in Temtem. It is a game that's kind of been seeing a decline lately, so it's awesome to see some fresh interest, and I hope that these builds help you guys out. So I hope to see you guys next time, and have a good one. Bye-bye.